This is another Disney podcast production.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Plan for the Magic. We're so glad you're here. This is episode 5. And of course, Plan for the Magic is a podcast that will hopefully help you plan your next Walt Disney World vacation. Even if you are a detailed planner like me or less of a detailed planner like my co-host over there, Dave. Happy to see you, Dave. How are you doing tonight?
Greetings. I'm doing fantastic.
Good.
Happy Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah, but no one is swimming because it's freezing.
I think it's going to be the last time until like October that we can say, gosh, it's freezing today.
I know.
So we can, pool day today, nothing. Tomorrow is supposed to be fantastic.
Hopefully we'll get a pool
and then it'll
day
be 80s and 90s the rest of the week, just like Florida.
That's right. That's right. I know this is like, yes, we cannot get used to this coolness, especially if we are Disney World bound anytime soon. Okay, so I just have to say that the official announcement for the Plan for the Magic podcast was made this week on the Another Disney podcast episode. And it was so exciting to see the official word be released. I have to do a shout out to my sweet friends who have been celebrating with me all week. It was really exciting.
Yeah, I saw your post on the Book of Face.
Oh, yeah.
And you got like much love. There was like 25 comments the last time that I looked.
Oh, yeah. So I have to say there's a lot of people who know my sort of love for Disney. I haven't shared a lot about this. So this was a little bit of a surprise, but it was fun and they're excited. And so hopefully we'll have some listeners. Hello, friends, if you're listening.
I know. It's so great. Now, here's what's wild, right? It's so bizarre to do something like this and be doing this big thing, like where we're setting up. We're in 2 different locations. We're connecting like over the internet. We're recording it all. It's going to be on YouTube. It's going to be on wherever you listen to podcasts. And like for weeks and weeks and weeks, we've been doing this and we haven't been able to really tell anybody.
I know.
So lame. So finally it's like, yes. So
we're out in the world.
This is going to be great.
All right. Well, let's jump in because I'm super, super excited about this episode. This is one I've been sort of gearing up for because I think team planner versus team, I don't know. I like your wing it. I don't know.
I'm a winger.
Sort of, yeah.
That's why COVID has been so great. I think I've visited more in this 12-month period with my annual pass during COVID than I have ever since I was an annual pass holder.
Wow. And
because
it's been set up for you. Like you don't have to do a ton of planning.
Nope.
No, I think you're totally right. Well, we are going to the super controversial topic of staying on Disney World property or staying off Disney World property. Okay, so I think what we're going to do in this episode, if you are game for it, is we're going to do a little bit of an overview of what it means to stay on property, what it means to stay off property, and then we'll do sort of some general pros and cons of each. And then maybe in the next episode, we'll do sort of a deep dive into some of our favorite places to stay. How does that sound?
Sounds great.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Well, let's start with on property. So a quick rundown of the kinds of resorts. So when we say staying on property, those are Walt Disney World resorts that are within the Walt Disney World bubble. They are a part of packages. They are owned and operated by Walt Disney World. There are multiple kind of categories of those. There are the least expensive way to stay on property at Walt Disney World is the campground, where you can actually rent either a camping location or you can actually rent RVs. There are organizations, companies that are not owned by Walt Disney World, but they will go and set an RV up, which sounds totally dreamy to me, actually. I think that would be really fun to not have to drive an RV down there, but to have it magically set up for you.
It's great. Awesome. Did I talk about this on an earlier episode? I swear I did.
I feel like we did.
Yeah. Anyway, I've done it. It's like Airbnb that comes to you.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I think that is great. Awesome. Yes. So there are the next sort of level are called value resorts. These are the least expensive, what you would consider sort of standard hotel rooms. They all have pools. They're incredibly highly themed. They have food courts, not tons of different kinds of restaurants, usually just a food court. Then the next level up are moderate resorts. They are exactly what the term says. They're moderately priced. There are large resorts. There are also small, moderate resorts. Those tend to have pools. I think all of the moderate resort pools have slides, and some of them have multiple pools where there's like a quiet pool. They tend to be really beautifully themed. They're less kind of animated Disney in your face themed. And that kind of tends to be the trend. The more expensive you get, the less like character in your face kind of theming you'll get. Just above moderate are the deluxe resorts. They tend to be more expensive. They are definitely larger hotel rooms. They have also highly themed pools, and some of them have spas. They also have a lot more food options typically. And then the highest level are the deluxe villas. Those are typically associated, they're part of a deluxe resort. And those rooms are often 1 and 2 bedroom, sometimes 3 bedroom apartment kind of villas. They tend to have kitchens, laundry, that kind of thing. And those are mostly, I think they're all Disney Vacation Club, but folks who just want to make a reservation can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. How was that? Am I good?
It was great.
We covered it, right?
Yeah.
Good.
I think so.
So just some quick kind of pros and cons. And Dave, I'd love to hear your thoughts, especially since you traveled this year. I think to me, the most significant reason to stay on Walt Disney World property is the Disney vibe, staying in the bubble of Walt Disney World. You are, you never sort of leave that experience when you're moving from the parks to restaurants to where you're staying. The cast members, that whole Disney touch where everything is really done with a level of excellence is maintained throughout your experience at the resort. I actually think that the levels of pricing is also a pro. I mean, I think the value resorts are incredibly well themed. You get all of the Disney-ness with it, and those are not astronomically high prices. I will say it gets a little more complicated if you're traveling with a family that is larger than sort of who can fit in a one hotel-ish like room. So if you have 5 members of your family, if you have large teenagers who don't feel like sharing a room, you start getting into the price becomes an issue. And I'm sure you'll talk a little bit about price when you chime in on your off-property pros and cons.
Yeah.
Dining is a huge pro. I mean, the kinds of dining, the access to dining, it's just, off the charts. I mean, we will have multiple episodes just strictly talking about dining, but the kinds of restaurants you can have access to on property resort is really just incredible. And it is true, you can dine at any of those locations, even if you aren't staying there, but having access to them by staying on property, I think is totally a pro. Now let's talk about COVID, because for me, one of the things I loved, especially as a mother of younger kids, when my kids were littler, we really liked some of those perks that came with staying on property. So for people
what perks do you speak of?
Perks, where are you? Perks, where have you gone? Come back. Yeah, I mean, this feels a little bit of a moot point right now because
well, they're still there. Let's just say we'll use a very COVID word. Things have pivoted.
Oh, there you go. Pivot. Yes, raise a glass.
We've transitioned during the last year. Yeah, I mean, so they're no different than anybody else, but it's still hard totally to true. Not relate to what you were used to, right?
Yes. So, I mean, when the boys were small, there was Magical Express, of course, which is still running through the calendar year 2021. But even now, they aren't going to take your luggage. I mean, one of the things we loved, again, like when you're a mother of young children or a father of young children, the word that comes to mind is schlepping. There's just so much stuff to take with you, and having the chance to check your bags at your departure gate and then not see them until they were in your room was huge. That's not happening. And of course, Magical Express, which is the transportation that picks you up from the Orlando airport and takes you, to the resort hotel, was part of that whole thing where they would take your luggage. The Magical Express bus.
I will jump in here and say,
yes,
so
please.
Let's just say if we're not doing this, but if we were to have a top 10 of like perks on Disney property, which maybe we should do an episode, maybe we should do some top 10s. Anyway, we'll talk about that offline. So I would say in the top 5, Magical Express was always that was a high up on the list when I was considering where I was staying, because you're right. There's nothing like, if you can get an early flight out of where you're leaving from and can get to, by midday, right. You can go straight to your hotel, check in, hop on a bus and go to a park, and your bags will just be there when you're toast at the end of the day. Like that was always a big defining factor. One of the best perks that I thought they had personally.
I totally agree. And with that, you could also check your bags to your airline from the resort in the morning of the departure day, which was also last time we were there. The gentleman who was the cast member who was working that had this incredible, bizarro ability to guess the weight of your bags. It was like this crazy. And there was a line and it was amazing. Yeah. Love that guy. I don't know. How you earn that skill, but he had been doing it for a while. So again, there are rumors about what kind of replacement thing. We know Mears, who's the transportation company that contracted with Disney to provide Magical Express, has already announced that they're going to be providing something for the 2022 year. I think we'll just see. The other one, again, with having kids who were early risers, or really anybody who was early risers, were extra magic hours. So those were park days that the parks would open almost 2 hours before general.
Or they had late night ones too.
Or they did have late night. Yeah. I don't know.
Those are the ones that the Daniels took advantage of.
And those don't exist any longer. What they're doing now, I think, is opening the park up an hour ahead of time, or a half
30
an hour
minutes
for
is what, I don't even know if it's launched, but that's what it is. But I've heard reports if you get there 45 minutes before, there's not really a rope drop right now, if that makes sense. Yeah. Right. It just is kind of open, and you can meander down, and some of the attractions might already be letting people on. So there's no, at least as yet, they haven't defined it. We'll just say that there's no kind of rhyme or reason right now. It's just kind of sure, I think as they begin to increase capacity, I feel like things are going to become a little bit more defined.
And the other non-perk that I would put on the perk list to enjoy are early access to fast passes and dining reservations. Again, fast passes aren't even a thing right now. So the perks thing is taking a hit for team on property. I got to say, I will admit that wholeheartedly right now. But I'm ready to hear kind of what your pros and cons of off property are. But
wait, have you done cons?
I guess I haven't explicitly done cons.
Oh, can I do some cons for Disney property?
Oh yeah. Okay. All right.
Okay. I have a few. And
Okay.
some of these are going to cross over because, well, I'll just start with one of the great things about, well, I don't want to jump too far ahead. You haven't really talked transportation yet other than the Magical Express. Are you getting to that later on?
Yes. No, I should say that within Disney property, the other huge element of transportation, even though Magical Express is a big TBD on what's going to happen in 2022, is access to the parks through any number of kinds of awesome transportation. So yes, there are resorts where you are required, or not required, but the free complimentary transportation that is provided are buses. And not all of the value, all of the all-star resorts, the 3 all-star resorts that are value resorts, you have to take a bus. There are a couple of moderate resort, 3 of the 4 actually moderate resorts, you have to take a bus to all 4 parks. But there are 2 other forms of actually 3 other forms of transportation for the 3 deluxe resorts that are closest to the Magic Kingdom. They are on what we call the monorail loop. And then there is also bus transportation from each of those 3, and then bus transportation from Wilderness Lodge or the Fort Wilderness Campground. All of those are within the Magic Kingdom kind of area. And then over by Hollywood Studios and Epcot is the Skyliner. And the Skyliner has access to both of those parks from a number of moderate, deluxe, and value resorts, actually. Yeah. So, and then boats, there's also boats that run between some of the resorts and Epcot and Hollywood
it's
Studios.
Great. Anything around, I forget the lake, but by the boardwalk and the Swan and Dolphin and the Yacht Club, all of those, you can take a boat right up to my favorite entrance of Epcot, which is through World Showcase.
Gateway.
Yeah. And then right there is also a station that you can hop on and go check out the new Riviera. If you're ever entering or exiting, you could use a Skyway to do that. But yeah, boats, that was the primary way when we did the camping thing. That was the primary way I went to the Magic Kingdom, because you could just hop on a little boat and it takes you right. That's what was so great. The boat didn't take you to the TCC. It took you to the front of the park, which was fantastic.
Right.
I felt like a king. Like I never had that. Like it was so great. It was like,
great.
Thank you for dropping me off at the front of the House of Mouse. It was great.
Yes.
Okay. So let's talk about that. So why I said that it was transportation. I'm just going to focus on, I don't know, like the minivans I think have come and gone. I don't know if that's dead in the water or not, but that wasn't free, although it was great for
that's true.
Whatever you wanted to do. But yeah, the bus system is a double-edged sword.
Yep.
Wait, that doesn't mean no, one side has to be, one has to be good. Like, okay, it's great. It's free. It's included.
Oh, there you go.
You don't have to have a rental car. Like all those kind of things are fantastic.
Right.
The challenge that we ran into is even when we were still booking and staying on property, I got to the point where I rented the car. Remember, Dave doesn't go for very long, and every minute is precious, except for when we sleep in. Yes. But every waking moment is precious. And one of the things you have to think about, all resorts will suffer from this, but I would say the value resorts the most. They have the largest amount of rooms. And so at the end of a park day, they're going to have the longest lines to get on a bus. And so we have stayed at Pop multiple times, All-Star Music multiple times, and have waited over an hour after Happily Ever Hour at Magic Kingdom to get a bus to go back. And I was and then, sometimes depending on when you were there, I don't know if they're still doing this, but I imagine that they are, especially if you stayed at All Stars, one bus would go to all 3.
Yeah, that I will say that is the con, and we'll talk about that with when we do a deep dive to our specifics, but some of those resorts are so large that it's
a lot of people.
There are a lot of people and a lot of bus stops. Yeah. So even if you make it on the bus, you've got a bit of a trip, because you have to ride through a few of those stops.
So it is very common during regular summertime of the year, regular summertime, that you would walk to the front of your resort, because that's how they are with the value resorts. All of the bus stops are up front. With the moderate and the deluxe, they are kind of like bus stops throughout.
Around.
So there's little shorter walks, but pretty decent wait too.
Right.
Anyway, but it was, I would say, if you got in line and you got the first bus and you got there, you were still like, it was 45 minutes before you were into our park. Right.
Yeah.
And here I am staying off property. I hop in my rental car. Like, we're on pre-COVID days. We're on the tram in 25 minutes easily, you know? And so, but you can't downplay that. It's still super valuable for people, because right now, like we were looking at potentially going this summer to rent a minivan for a week was $735.
That is crazy.
I'm sorry, what?
Right.
And so, like, if we were going, a rental would not have been an option. And then if we were staying off property, then we're relying on whatever shuttles that off property hotel offers. And like, that's not going to be nearly the same consistency. And at 3:00 in the afternoon, if you're wiped and the bus comes at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m.
Right.
Like, what are you going to do? So that's why I'm saying it's kind of like transportation's a double-edged sword on both ends. Yeah. But here's like, so I started renting car, and then was the ultimate like dagger for me is when Disney started charging for parking at their resorts. Now, everybody's going to say, most resorts do that all over the country.
Right.
Yes, they do. But when you get used to do something for 20 years, and then all of a sudden, like, it's a harsh change for people. And then now the value resorts go up by like $100 more for the time you're there. I mean, that's, you know, I know people are going to say
that's true.
No, I know some people are going to say, well, it's $25 a day to park too. Yeah, but you have your rental car to do whatever else you want to do. And you can still use Disney transportation when you're like from your resort. And so I just was like, really? And then honestly, what started, when I'll get to mine in a second, is I just started really looking. I was like, okay, what else is out there? We had never done Disney off property. Right. And then we started to, and I was like, oh,
what? Yeah.
And so, so anyway, like, I just, my other cons that you kind of mentioned, I mean, the biggest cons are like, it's COVID, right?
Yeah.
Pricing, there are certainly more. I would say, excuse me, it's challenging. What's funny is on a recent Reimagineer we just reimagineered not all of the All-Stars, but just All-Star Sports. Yeah. And so when I look at that, like, it's a glorified Days Inn. Yeah. And it's $170 a night. Like, that same hotel room here, not at the oceanfront, here is $70 during peak summertime. So you see the difference. So you're paying. No, I understand. You're paying for the buses that get you to and from the park. You're having to pay for.
I mean, the theming, though, you're not getting that theming at a regular.
Oh, no. Right. Yeah. And that's one thing to bring up. All the value resorts have oversized icons of Disney. And to me, I honestly, that's why we typically stay there. Certainly cost was a reason. I mean, we've stayed at Caribbean Beach. I've stayed with friends at, it wasn't Saratoga Springs. Where did you guys buy into?
Old Key West.
No, it wasn't there. It was another one. It was really close to Disney Springs. I can't remember all of them.
Port Orleans?
Yes. Port Orleans, I think.
French Quarter or,
say it. I'm so bad when it comes to this.
I know. It just flew out of my head. Anyway, Riverside, Port Orleans, Riverside.
No, then it couldn't have been.
That's Port the Orleans. 4 that are on the river that go, the Sassagoula. It's Saratoga Springs, Old Key West, Port Orleans, French Quarter,
Old Key West,
Riverside.
That's
Old
what
Key
it was.
West.
Old
Okay.
Key West. Yeah. And so, like, I've stayed at a few that aren't just all value, but for the most part, and because they felt the most Disney. Yeah. Like, as a Disney fan, I want to go. And, you know, we had littles they're not as little anymore. I mean, we still have a 6-year-old, but it's always like, that's where I wanted to stay. Yes. Like, it felt like Disney. And again, you're also like, don't throw eggs at me. We're not hotel people. Like, we're just like, we are not hanging out at the resort.
No, I just feel like I want to pause for a second. That is a very important part of this conversation. Right. How much time are you planning on spending there? is time at the resort and the resort experience part of your vacation? Because if it's not, if the way you guys travel, which is get to the parks as fast as possible, I mean, it totally makes sense that the resort experience gets pushed further down on your list. We want to go back. And I will say that's the other thing is for those who want afternoon siestas, like staying on property, having quick access to the resort makes that easier. So that is important for us, the way we travel. Spending time at the resort is something that we think about and want to do. So that's a big deal. That
is fair. See, like because we're goers. Our non-park day was always Disney Springs. So it still wasn't a rest. It still wasn't a let's hang out, and the other thing is everybody's family dynamic is different, right? Our kids we're just not like, I know, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse. We talk about we're not going to sit, we always go back and take naps for sure. But then we go back to the park. And again, we are fortunate to live at the beach. We can ride our bikes to the water park. Like I mentioned, my in-laws have a in-ground swimming pool that our kids are stay there during the summer. We're going tomorrow for Memorial Day, and so I get, it's like, if you're coming from Midwest, and it's and you don't have any, your closest water is a pond, right? I get it. There's a hole. And so, but I thank you for stopping that and saying perspective important. Is everything and how people travel. I'm done with my cons because I went off on a long tangent. So please start talking.
No, I definitely think the biggest, other than just having access to that Disney experience the entire time. And in some ways too, we've talked a little bit and we will get further into the conversation about utilizing Disney vacation planning, but it's a complicated process. And so keeping things within the Disney queue, that sort of bubble also on your planning experience. So everything's showing up on the My Disney Experience app. There is something to be said for that whole part of it. But that, I have to say, the crushing blow that COVID has put on some of those perks is legit. It's real. Well, tell us a little bit about off property. I have never stayed off property, so I don't have a valid sort of weighing.
Well, you don't have a weight. You don't have a metric, right? So
no, I don't. Yeah.
So there's tons of reasons to do it. I think the biggest reason that most people do it is probably shared, but I would say the number one reason is most likely cost, right? I think that's going to be a big factor for people, but also some people just like to stay in the middle because Disney's not the only theme park that they're going to visit when they're in town.
Right.
That's just a reality. For us, I will be completely transparent. I have said this over and over in life. We would have to go to Disney for a month and maybe I would go to Universal for a day.
Yeah.
I'm just a Disney guy.
Yeah.
That's just is Universal awesome? I'm sure it is.
Right.
Is Hogwarts amazing? It sure looks like it, but it's just, Disney is where I want to be. And don't shoot me. It's just, that's just where I want to be. Will I go eventually? Yeah, probably. Especially when what is it? Nintendo World, Mario Land.
Right.
Yeah, I was a big Nintendo kid growing up. So that's going to be a must for sure. Anyway. Okay. But I think that's the biggest thing is it gives you opportunity to stay in somewhere else in Orlando. That's 10-minute drive from Disney, 10-minute drive from SeaWorld in, Universal. I think that's part of it. But the other thing is size of family, right? That once you cross over the 4 and just add that extra 1, that changes it's so much more expensive to go from either 1 hotel or 2 hotels or to where you have to get a suite on Disney property. It just, now it changes the price everywhere, but it feels like it's a bigger blow to the wallet at Disney. Now, I want to reiterate that we stayed on property for years. I love staying on property. I've mentioned this, it's happening in October because I wasn't going to miss out on being there for the 50th. I'm staying at All-Star Movies for the first time. I may switch to Pop if I can get in there, but because it's been years since we've been at Pop, and they've remodeled everything. So anyway, but like I'm not anti there. I remember Dave is crunching numbers to see how many times can I go.
You can get down there. Yeah.
Right. And so I have my 3 C's: cheap, close, clean. Like those are my 3 C's. Okay. So next episode, we are going to deep dive into our resorts. So I'm just going to mention them, and all of the first 3 they might as well be on property. They're that close. And next week I'll give you miles. I'll give you miles from like Animal Kingdom and Magic Kingdom, because obviously Animal Kingdom is the furthest away from like Magic Kingdom, so it's closest to civilization, and then Magic Kingdom is the furthest away from. That's right. So I'm going to give you mileage, and I think you're going to be surprised. Okay, so one of them is it's the Ramada Inn. There's nothing fancy. I won't go into prices, but typically off season, $60 a night, 2 queen beds. I mean, I won't give you mileage. It's literally the first stoplight off of Disney property.
My goodness.
So, and they have like the motel side, which is like one story that's like 40-ish something a night. Oh my gosh. The tower is a little like it's quieter, it's better built. Yeah. You pay a little bit more. Now that's like I will give you prices. What we'll do is, Audrey, let's make a deal. We didn't talk about this. Let's look at prices in the middle of. Let's do it after the week after July 4th. Let's base all of our price, so that way we can kind of say we're in the middle of summer pricing. Yep. Is that fair?
Okay. Yeah.
And in a coming off COVID year, so take that what it's worth if you listen to this 3 years from now.
Yeah. Right.
The other one is Mystic Dunes. This is it is a timeshare property, but hotels.com, Expedia, Trivago. If you go on there, it's there. I'm not going to dive into pricing yet, but I went with my mom and dad 2 years ago. I actually bunked with Matthew when we went a few weeks ago, and I just went for the weekend, but their 2-bedroom is 1,700 square feet. What?
Oh my gosh.
And it's in a timeshare resort, so it's big, it's sprawling. I'll talk about the amenities. Anyway, like again, this one you turn left at the first stoplight and go a mile down the road off of Disney property. Yeah. And then the other one is, I really don't want to talk about this because it's so new, and it's a hidden gem, but it's not going to be a hidden gem for long.
Yeah.
Home to Suites.
Yep.
This is by Hilton, I believe. I've stayed at them several times when I worked for a company where we traveled to Charlotte all the time. That was just the room that we always had. They're phenomenal. They're very retro. They're very new. They're laid out very well. Like retro, it's just a little like they either have 2 beds or a king bed, and then they have a sitting area, and then they have a full refrigerator. Like they're great. So this is in a property that I should have remembered. I can't remember that. Flamingo something. Flamingo Circle. I don't know. It's branded. They just announced this. The Florida Healthcare, the Advent, and Disney and they're building big like hospital there. Flamingo something. Anyway, we got to stay there in February. They've been open for 5 weeks.
Yeah.
So this is going to be, now this is something that Audrey didn't touch on, which I think we should do an entire episode on, even though we never stayed there at any of them, but there are tons of what Disney calls good neighbor hotels.
Yes. Right.
What that means is you get some perks.
So important.
You get some perks during typical non-COVID time. You get some perks that you would staying at Disney branded hotels, and Home to Suites is one of them. And when I say close, if you hopped on a bicycle and you were in your mid 70s, it would take you 7.5 minutes to drive under the Walt Disney World property sign. Oh That's how close it is. So in a car, it's 60 seconds.
Wow.
And it's brand new. It's like the pool out back. We stayed on the 5th floor. We opened the door and we had a pool view. We were like,
oh my gosh. Okay, don't tell us yet.
It was February, unfortunately. Again, you're gonna like this one is the closest. Like I said, you leave that hotel, turn left
right there.
60 seconds, you drive underneath the Welcome to Walt Disney World.
See that all the time. That's kind of exciting.
Yeah, and then a bonus one that I have, which I will talk about in a few weeks, and you'll know why, is Margaritaville.
Yep.
And so that is a stone's throw away from the backside of Animal Kingdom, but it's a little bit. I mean, it's several lights to get in.
Yeah.
Great, like massive sprawling hotel, but also cottages that sleep anywhere from 4 to 16.
Yeah. I mean, I think to your point about it isn't just price, it is also value for price, that combination of the kind of space you get. Now, on property rooms, they are adding, this is helpful with younger kids, although I think it is a standard single. I think Disney has gotten the message that a family of 5, it's just prohibitive to get 2 rooms. And so in a lot of the remodels, they are adding a single Murphy bed underneath the television. So there's usually 2 queens and then the single, in a moderate room where a lot of them are. I mean, that is cozy. It is, tight when all those beds are kind of, whether or not it's the kind where there's a standard queen and then a pull-out couch and a Murphy or whatever it is. Once all those beds are down, it is quite cozy. But they are acknowledging the fact that if you are a family of 5, trying to navigate regular standard hotel rooms is really difficult to do.
And I think they've done that they added some in Pop. I think Pop got some.
Oh yeah.
And maybe Movie. I know Pop got some of the Murphy beds, but I don't.
Yeah, those are 2 queen Murphy beds. So that's the way they have actually utilized space in those value rooms is awesome. They don't have the 5th sleeper though. That is just the Murphy bed for the second bed. But it's awesome because it allows there to be a little more space when you're not sleeping. For
sure. And then I skipped over one, which is Leaky Tiki Resort.
Oh, sorry.
So it is Polynesian themed. It is nothing like the Polynesian, but another big sprawling resort, lots of little further away from property, but you'll be blown away again at the prices and then the size of it. So let's really let me plow through really quickly, like the pros and cons. Obviously, much cheaper than Disney property. Can fit larger families, still less than most. Almost all moderates, or getting 2 hotel rooms at a value. And then all the amenities, like these are more, a couple that I've listed are more of a resort feel that would feel more like a Disney resort. Nice, like awesome pools, themed really well, like rent cabanas, like, some of these resorts, because again, they're trying to draw people away from Disney. So they're going to add a whole lot to their amenities in their pool. They're going to spend their money there. And of course, make larger rooms and offer like more suites or more multi-room, things at a discounted price for sure. And again, a lot of these that have those, they're old timeshares. And of course, we all know the timeshare market kind of has bombed and fallen apart. So how they're making their money now is you rent them as like hotel rooms for the week because nobody's really booking them as timeshares. And then of course, let's go back to like the cons. Off property, out of the bubble. Either you have to do a rental car or you're relying on Uber or shuttles that the resorts have, and that's not going to be a thing. And then if you do have a car and you're not an AP, it's $25 a day for parking. I mean, so that you're there for a week. That's $200.
At the resort. I mean, that's at the park.
Correct.
So wherever you.
And then some of these that I've listed do charge for parking. Some of them don't.
Right.
What's really cool is the one that's a Disney, the Home to Suites does not charge for parking.
Oh,
and that's the closest to property. Anyway, I think there's so many more pluses and so many more cons, but I don't want to spend so much time on this, but those are kind of the ones in a nutshell.
I think it's, both again, I feel like we did this last week with the calendars. I mean, I think there are a lot of options, both on property and off property. Can you speak a little bit to the food for those of us who eating is really important?
I hope it's important to everyone. What do you mean? Like at the resorts?
Yeah. At the off-property resorts.
Well,
Are you just eating? Yeah. Okay. I'm just curious.
Now, well, I've never eaten there.
Yeah.
So I embarrassingly don't know. So next episode, we're diving deeper.
Yeah.
And like, then I'll be able to speak to it.
Yeah.
But I mean, my guess is that Mystic Dunes might have a restaurant. Leaky Tiki might have a restaurant, but I personally wouldn't eat there.
Yeah.
I would make a reservation to eat on, like with the money that I'm saving
on property.
I would eat like I would go eat at a Disney
That's a really
resort,
good point.
or eat at like something in a sit down in Epcot, or my personal favorite, if I haven't driven this into the ground, is the Skipper Canteen. That's my favorite. I mean, Le Cellier is number one, but that's a different price category. That's Skipper Canteen, but Skipper Canteen, not a hidden gem, but you don't hear a lot of people talk about it. It's magnificent.
You really don't.
Theming is incredible. Food is amazing. Love it.
It's a good one.
So I'll have more information on dining next week.
Yes. Okay. And I will say, one thing that Disney does, the Disney transportation, that does make things a little challenging, even if you're staying on resort property and you want to eat at another resort, traveling from resort to resort via Disney transportation can be a real challenge. If you are on the Skyliner, if you are on the monorail and you're going to another property on the monorail or the Skyliner, so you're on your same loop, it's much easier. But there is not bus transportation from resorts directly to other resorts, and so that can be a little tricky. Those 4 resorts we mentioned earlier that are on the Sassagoula River, you can get a boat, usually not right now because of COVID, but to Disney Springs. So there are some ways to get to dining, but even though staying on property gives you access to a lot of really good food, sometimes it can be a little tricky. So
yeah, I mean, I will say this. So we lived through this. So I know this is going to be really old, but in 2007, my wife and I, pre-kids, we stayed at Caribbean Beach for a week, and we did the moderate meal plan, which means we got one sit-down dinner, sit-down meal a day. And so we made reservations all over the place because we're these type of people. You're going to learn a lot of weird stuff about me. I'm the type of person, I love going to Vegas and going to all the hotels.
Yeah.
Not to gamble, not to party. I just want to go see these massive sprawling, and of course catch shows. Like I have to go to all the Cirque du Soleil stuff. But yeah, like that's what, and so when we went, I just wanted to go see all of these expensive bleeping resorts to go like check out. Right. And so, that's how we did it. We ate at Boma at Animal Kingdom. We did all this. And so back then, there wasn't, like, we stayed at Value Resort. No, it was the
moderate.
Moderate. So it was go outside, and we flew and did Magical Express and stayed on property. So no vehicle, right? So it was go outside to the bus stop, wait for the bus to Disney Springs.
Yes.
Disney Springs, we would go and find the hotel to Animal Kingdom Lodge. Yes. I mean, the bus, and go to, and so it was like you had to start that 2 hours before your reservation.
Yeah. It does take a while.
It's a little bit better now that they've added the Skyliner, because if you're going to, it might just be easier to like go to Epcot, walk through Epcot, get on the Skyliner if it works. Yeah. So you've got a few more options, but still, not easy. And of course, Uber wasn't a thing then. And so the idea of taking a taxi felt like it's going to be $80. I'm not taking a taxi. No. So anyway,
Yeah. That's a sneaky one to think about on the pros and cons. Okay. Well, I think we've done sort of the overview. I'm looking at my list. I think we're good. So let's wrap it up there, and we will come back on a future episode, and I will share, I know Dave gave you some of his 4 or 5 that he's going to talk about. I will talk about some of my favorite on property resorts, what I love about them, and ones I'm happy to share ones that I'm excited to stay out in the future.
There you go.
Eventually. But, Awesome. Well, good. That was awesome. If you guys have any questions about on property, off property, any thoughts, we'd love to hear what your favorites are. Please hit us up. Dave, where can they reach us?
Oh, the easiest is 757-563-4742. You can text or call us there and leave a voicemail. And of course, anotherdispodcast@gmail.com if that is your favorite way of communicating. Yeah. Those are the two easiest ways.
Awesome. All right. Well, good to see you.
Yes.
Catch you next time, friend.
Yeah, next week. Here we go.
All right. Bye.